The Atlantic wind bit at my bare arms, but it was nothing compared to the ice in my veins. My gaze was fixed on that sprawling mansion, floodlights harsh against the celebratory glow from inside. The New Jersey pack was celebrating their new Luna, a woman who wasn't me, a woman who had no idea about the secret beating heart I carried, tucked away safe from all this opulent betrayal. My secret. They called me broke and meek, an omega unworthy of anything but pity after the public humiliation. But tonight, as I clutched my thin coat tighter, a fierce, protective fire pulsed beneath my skin, all for the tiny life nestled away, far from this moment. This isn't just a story, it's a saga of defiance, a whisper of fate, and a love that ripped through destiny. You're about to hear how a discarded omega became the catalyst for a new world, how a hidden power redefined everything, and how a secret baby united what centuries of tradition tried to tear apart. If you're ready for passion, betrayal, fated mates, and a fight against insurmountable odds, hit that like button and subscribe, because you won't want to miss a single word of My Secret Baby is the Prophesied Alpha Prince. My world had shattered 6 months ago, not with a bang, but with the cold, calculated precision of Seth Maxwell, the Alpha Prince of the New Jersey pack. We were fated, or so I believed. My wolf would sing every time he was near, a wild symphony of recognition that vibrated through my very bones. He'd whispered promises of forever under moonlit skies, touched me with a reverence that spoke of a deep, undeniable connection. Naive and hopeful Layla, that was me. I'd actually envisioned our future. Me, a strong Luna by his side, the laughter of our children echoing through the pack house, a life built on the sacred bond the moon goddess herself had supposedly woven. Then came the annual claiming ceremony, a spectacle meant to solidify his position as the future alpha. I stood ready, heart hammering with anticipation, eyes fixed on his regal form as he surveyed the assembled pack. And then he chose her. Not just another woman, but Bethany, a sleek, ambitious beta from a rival pack, her gaze as sharp and cold as a winter blade. Seth's voice, amplified by his alpha command, resonated through the clearing, declaring his choice. His eyes met mine across the silent crowd, and for a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Regret? Duty? Before it was replaced by a mask of hardened resolve. Then he spoke, his voice carrying an insult so cutting it drew gasps from the stunned onlookers. He declared me too soft, too meek, an omega unfit to stand beside a true alpha. The words sliced through me, worse than any physical blow. My own family, my pack, just stood by, their gazes shifting between pity and stark embarrassment. The sacred mate bond, the one that had thrummed with life inside me, now burned with a painful hollow ache. It was a wound that tore deeper than flesh. It was a rejection not just of me, but of the very core of my wolf. I fled that night. The humiliation was a searing brand, burning behind my eyes. My wolf, usually a source of comfort and strength, howled in agony within me, mirroring the emptiness in my soul. I just drove for hours, my old beat-up sedan a blur on the highway, aiming for anywhere that wasn't touched by the New Jersey pack. Eventually, I landed in a small, isolated town nestled deep in the Appalachian foothills, a place called Havenwood. It was quiet, unassuming, perfect for disappearing. I found a small apartment above a sleepy bakery and managed to get a job as a veterinary assistant. My human skills, at least, were still useful. I poured myself into work, into solitude, into trying to mend the gaping wound in my heart. But then the dream started. Vivid, unsettling visions of towering pines and a pervasive sense of ancient power that made my skin prickle even in my sleep. My senses, too, seemed subtly sharper. I could hear conversations 2 blocks away, smell the first hint of rain on the wind, even pick out nuances in the dim light I'd never noticed before. I dismissed it all as lingering stress, a byproduct of my shattered reality. 3 months into my self-imposed exile, the world decided I hadn't suffered enough. A blinding snowstorm, a true blizzard, hit Havenwood. It snarled traffic and coated everything in a thick, unforgiving white. I was just finishing up closing the clinic, the only soul left, when a sudden crash from the back echoed through the silence. My heart hammered. I grabbed a heavy-duty flashlight, its beam dancing nervously down the narrow hallway. "Hello!" I called out, my voice thin against the howl of the wind outside. The back door hung open, snow swirling onto the sterile linoleum floor of the recovery room. Just as I reached out to pull it shut, fighting against the storm's fury, a massive, dark shape moved in my peripheral vision. I spun, the flashlight beam catching a flash of silver-gray fur, blood. So much blood. before the creature collapsed behind the kennels with a bone-deep whimper that tore at my chest. It was a wolf. An enormous wolf, easily twice the size of any I'd ever seen, even in my shifter form. Its thick coat was matted with blood and ice, and one of its hind legs was bent at an unnatural angle. But it was the eyes that stopped me cold. They were human, intelligent, weary, and filled with a pain that went far beyond any physical injury. "Easy, boy," I whispered, though something in those eyes told me this was no ordinary male wolf. There was an ancient wisdom there, something that made my human skin prickle with a strange awareness. "I'm going to help you, but you have to trust me. I worked through the night." My initial fear quickly dissolved, replaced by the familiar urgency of a healer. My veterinary training kicked in, overriding any primal instinct to flee. I cleaned the gruesome wounds, gently splinted the broken leg, all the while murmuring reassurances in a calm, soothing voice. The wolf remained perfectly still, watching me with an intensity that should have been unnerving, but instead felt protective. He seemed to memorize my face, my touch, my every whispered word. As dawn finally broke, exhausted and bone-weary, I allowed myself a moment to rest, dozing in the chair beside his kennel. When I woke, the world outside was pristine, blanketed in fresh, undisturbed snow. But the kennel was empty. My makeshift splint lay abandoned in the corner, a few strands of silver gray for the only evidence he'd ever been there. No blood, no sign of struggle. He had simply vanished, a phantom in the storm, leaving behind a confusing sense of loss and a persistent tingling sensation on my wrist, right where his muzzle had gently brushed my skin. For weeks after that night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It wasn't menacing, not exactly, but oddly comforting, like a warm blanket on a cold night. I'd catch fleeting glimpses. A tall, broad-shouldered figure at the edge of the woods, a fleeting shadow across the street. Then came the day I recognized him. His eyes. They were the exact shade of liquid amber that had haunted my dreams. He introduced himself as Asher Vance, a new arrival to Havenwood, a reclusive outdoorsman who rented a cabin up in the mountains. Small towns talk, and I quickly learned he paid in cash, kept to himself, and never caused trouble. But everyone sensed the underlying wildness about him. Asher was polite, almost painfully so, but his gaze was always intense, always on me. During one of our brief encounters, he steadied my hand when I dropped something, and the touch sent the same inexplicable jolt of electric warmth through me that the wolf's muzzle had. My mind screamed coincidence, but my heart, still bruised from Seth's betrayal, felt an undeniable pull. One icy morning, my ancient sedan skidded on a patch of black ice and slammed into a snowbank. Stranded, with the ominous rumble of approaching storm clouds, I started walking back to town. Within minutes, a black pickup truck pulled up beside me. Asher. His amber eyes, usually so guarded, held a flash of what looked suspiciously like relief. I hesitated for only a second before climbing in. The truck smelled of pine, worn leather, and something else, something wild and clean, the scent of the wolf. "You seem to have a habit of showing up when I need help," I said lightly, trying to ignore the frantic beat of my heart. His hands tightened on the wheel. "Maybe I just have good timing," he rasped, his voice deeper than usual. "Or maybe you were following me." I blurted out, the words escaping before I could stop them. The silence that followed stretched, suffocating. He pulled over, turning to face me. "Layla," he said, and my name sounded like a prayer on his lips. "There are things about me you don't understand." I felt a sudden surge of courage. "Then help me understand," I challenged, leaning closer. "Ever since that night at the clinic, I've felt like I'm missing pieces of a puzzle. Like there's something just out of reach." He reached out slowly, his trembling fingers brushing a strand of hair from my cheek. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, so kind. "You deserve better than the complications I'd bring to your life." "What if I don't want better?" I whispered back, surprised by my own boldness. "What if I want the complications?" His gaze dropped to my lips, and for a heartbeat, I thought he'd kiss me. But then he pulled back, his hand falling away. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then show me," I challenged again. He started the truck, his movements jerky. "Somewhere I can think clearly," he said, turning onto a narrow, snow-covered forest road. He led me to a secluded log cabin, surrounded by towering evergreens. And there, in the fresh snow, were large, perfectly round circles. Too deliberate for deer. Too large for any common animal. "The wolf," I whispered, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "The wolf I saved that night, it was you, wasn't it?" His face went pale, his amber eyes wide with what looked like terror. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was right. He confessed everything. The ancient lineage, the family curse that caused them to shift with the full moon, the constant threat of hunters who sought to exterminate their kind. He'd been wounded by a trap meant to kill, a trap he'd stumbled into after a furious argument with his brother about whether to flee Havenwood entirely. "You should be afraid of me," he whispered, his shoulders hunched. "When I change, I'm not entirely in control. I could hurt you." But the certainty in my voice surprised even me. "But you wouldn't. I don't know how I know that, but I do. You'd die before you'd hurt me." He looked at me with raw wonder. "You felt it too, didn't you?" That night, the connection. I nodded, my heart pounding. Like coming home to a place I'd never been before. "It's called mate bonding," he said, his voice raw with honesty. "My grandmother used to tell stories. Very rarely, one of us finds someone whose soul calls to ours, someone who can see past the beast." The truth of it settled deep within me. This was why I felt so drawn to him, why my wolf had thrummed with recognition. It wasn't just a physical attraction, it was destiny. "Show me," I urged, my voice thick with emotion. "Show me what you really are." He agreed, leading me inside the cabin, warning me that once I saw, there would be no going back. As he transformed, his human form melting away to reveal the magnificent silver-gray wolf, I felt no fear. Only awe. "Hello, beautiful," I whispered, reaching out to touch his fur. The electric warmth returned, confirming everything. He was the injured creature I had saved, the one who had looked at me with such trust. And he was my mate. The peace of that moment was shattered by a sharp, mournful howl echoing across the mountain. Rhys's pack. They were calling a warning. Hunters. We barely had time to react before the cabin door exploded inward. Armed figures, their faces hidden behind tactical masks, poured in. Their leader, a cold-eyed man named Wallace, immediately recognized Rhys. "Rhys Vance," he snarled, his voice flat and professional. "You're a hard man to pin down. Still hunting innocent people, I see." Rhys's voice was deadly calm. "Your kind has been a plague on humanity for centuries. Tonight it ends." Wallace's gaze shifted to me, his eyes narrowing. "A human who knows what you are and hasn't run screaming. How touching." He gestured, and one of his men grabbed my arm. "She's seen too much." Rhys exploded. His wolf form, massive and furious, slammed into Wallace. Chaos erupted. I wrenched free from my captor, grabbing a heavy poker from the fireplace. "Layla, run!" Rhys's voice was strained, half-growl. But I couldn't. Not when he was outnumbered. Not when these people wanted to kill him for simply existing. I swung the poker, connecting with a hunter's shoulder. Then I saw Wallace raise his rifle, a clear shot at Rhys's exposed flank. Without thinking, I threw myself forward, colliding with Wallace as he fired. A searing pain erupted in my shoulder as the bullet meant for Rhys tore through me. I hit the ground, the world spinning. But through the haze I heard it, Rhys's howl of rage, raw, primal, and filled with anguish. He stood over Wallace, his massive jaws inches from the hunter's throat. "Let her go." Wallace gasped, blood trickling from his cheek. "Let us take her to a hospital, and we'll call this even." Rhys's amber eyes found mine, filled with such raw love and desperation that it took my breath away. "No deals," I gasped, struggling to sit up. "I stay with him." "Layla," Rhys pleaded, his voice a mixture of wolf and man. "I stay," I repeated firmly, meeting his gaze. "We face this together or not at all." Just then a chorus of howls echoed from outside, closer this time, from multiple directions. Rhys's pack. They had come for him. The pack descended on the cabin like shadows given form, a surge of massive wolves. They surrounded the hunters, outnumbering them. My shoulder throbbed, but Rhys never left my side, his massive form a living shield. Sarah, Rhys's aunt, a smaller wolf with intelligent dark eyes, shifted and knelt beside me, her hands gentle as she examined my wound. "Through and through," she murmured. "Painful, but not life-threatening if we get it cleaned." She looked up at Rhys. "She'll be all right, nephew, but we need to get her somewhere safe." Wallace, seeing the impossible odds, conceded. 24 hours, he snarled. "All of you gone from this territory. If I see any of you again, the deal is off." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was mercy. As the hunters filed out, Wallace paused in the doorway. "You're making a mistake, Miss Stone. When you're living like an animal in the wilderness, remember that you chose this." I met his gaze steadily. "I'll remember that I chose love over fear. Can you say the same?" We left Havenwood before dawn, racing through the treacherous mountain trails. My shoulder throbbed, but a strange, tingling sensation began to spread through my limbs, starting in my chest. My senses were sharpening, Sounds, smells, everything. My senses are enhancing, I whispered to Rhys. It's starting. Sarah explained that a strong mate bond could cause the human partner to begin changing even before the formal ceremony. In the chaos of the chase, with hunters and their dogs pursuing us, I closed my eyes and focused. Rhys's voice became an anchor, low and hypnotic, guiding me to feel the forest not with human senses but with something deeper. I gasped as the world exploded into vivid detail. I could smell every pine, hear every rustle, and most incredibly, sense the emotions of the pack, their anxiety, their fierce loyalty, their love. I can see the path, I breathed. Not see exactly, but know it. The safest route to the river. My instincts, newly awakened, guided us through a circuitous path that confused the tracking dogs, leading us to hidden vehicles. We drove north, towards a place called the Canadian Sanctuary, a hidden community where other shifters lived away from human civilization. Once you complete the mating ceremony, Finn, Rhys's brother, said from the back seat, you'll be pack. Blood of our blood, family of our family. No one will question your place. I felt no regret, only anticipation. The future was uncertain, wild, and beautiful, just like the love that had changed everything. The Canadian Sanctuary was a place out of time, nestled deep in old-growth forest. Log cabins, smoke curling from stone chimneys, and everywhere, the sense of a community living in harmony with the wild. What struck me most were the people, some clearly in human form, others shifting so naturally that the boundaries blurred. A woman tending a garden with wolf ears and elongated canines, a man chopping wood with the powerful build of his animal nature. This is what we could have been, Rhys murmured, watching my stunned reaction, if the world hadn't forced us into hiding. Elder Marcus, a man with silver hair braided with feathers and small bones, greeted us. Another lost soul finds her way home, he said, his voice carrying ancient wisdom. We've been expecting you, Layla. Many of our pack leaders have been dreaming of a healer who would bridge two worlds. I felt a blush creep up my neck. I'm not special. I just did what anyone would have done. Elder Marcus's eyes twinkled. Most humans who encounter an injured wolf would call animal control, not risk their lives to provide medical care. Most humans who learn our secret would run, not choose to share our exile. Over the next few hours, I met Maria, a bear shifter and the settlement's doctor, and David, a wolf shifter who had studied human law. But it was the children who truly won my heart, approaching without fear, drawn by an instinct that told them I belonged. A little girl named Luna solemnly presented me with a crown of woven pine branches. For the ceremony, she explained seriously. Mama says you're going to become pack family. That evening, seated between Rhys and Elder Marcus around a massive fire pit, I admitted my nervousness. Terrified, I confessed to Rhys, but in a good way. Like standing at the edge of a cliff and knowing you're about to learn how to fly. Marcus chuckled. An apt metaphor. The mating ceremony is indeed a leap of faith. You'll be leaving your human limitations behind, but gaining so much more. Sarah later led me to a small cabin, prepared for me with wild flowers in mason jars and burning sage that filled the air with sacred smoke. Traditional preparation takes 3 days, she explained. Fasting, meditation, connecting with the natural world, but given our circumstances, we'll compress it into tonight and tomorrow. Drink this, she said, handing me herbal tea that smelled of pine and something earthy. It will help open your awareness to the spirit realm. Then rest. Tomorrow evening, when the moon is full, you and Rhys will complete the bonding. As I sipped the tea, a warmth spread through my limbs. Sarah, are you sure I'm doing the right thing? Giving up my humanity for this. Sarah's gaze was gentle. Humanity isn't about your DNA or your ability to shift. It's about love, compassion, the choice to protect what matters most. If anything, you're becoming more human, not less. That night I dreamed. Visions more real than waking life. I ran through moonlit forests, my body moving with impossible grace and speed. I felt the pack around me, their thoughts and emotions flowing like a river of shared consciousness. And always Rhys, his presence a constant source of strength and love. I woke just before dawn, my body humming with an energy I'd never experienced. When I looked in the small mirror above the wash basin, my reflection showed eyes that seemed brighter, more alert. My senses were sharper too. I could hear Rhys moving in the cabin next door, smell the wood smoke from the central fire, even through closed windows. The change is accelerating, I whispered to myself, feeling no fear, only anticipation. The sacred grove was a circle of ancient pines, pulsing with otherworldly energy. As I walked the moonlit path beside Rhys, I felt the weight of centuries pressing down on us. All the couples who had stood in this place before, all the bonds that had been forged under the watchful eye of the moon. The entire pack had gathered, forming a wide circle around the grove's perimeter. I could see their eyes gleaming in the darkness, some human, some wolf, all fixed on us with an intensity that should have been intimidating, but instead felt protective, welcoming. In the old days, Elder Marcus's voice carried clearly through the still air. Our ancestors believed that the moon held the spirits of all mated pairs who had passed into the next realm. Tonight, they watch as two souls become one, as the sacred bond is sealed in flesh and spirit. My heart hammered against my ribs, but when Rhys's fingers intertwined with mine, the nervous energy transformed into something deeper. Anticipation, desire, and a love so powerful it felt like it might lift me off the ground. "Layla," Marcus continued, "you come to us as human, but you will leave as something more. Do you accept the responsibilities of pack membership? Will you protect our people as fiercely as they will protect you?" "I will," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "Rhys Vance, you bring your chosen mate before your pack family. Do you swear to cherish her, to share your strength with her, to honor the bond that connects your souls until the moon falls from the sky?" "I swear it," Rhys said, and his voice carried the rumble of barely contained transformation. Marcus gestured toward the center of the grove, where a circle of white stones marked the sacred space. "Then let the ceremony begin." We walked hand in hand to the center, and I felt the moment we crossed the stone boundary like a physical shift in the air around us. The moonlight seemed brighter here, more focused, as if the grove itself were a lens concentrating celestial energy. "The first bond," Marcus called out, "is forged in trust." Rhys turned to face me, his amber eyes reflecting the silver light above them. Slowly, reverently, he reached for the ties of my simple white linen dress. His fingers trembled slightly as he loosened the fabric, and I felt my breath catch at the tenderness in his touch. "I trust you with my heart," he whispered so quietly only I could hear. "With my soul, with everything I am or ever will be." I helped him remove the dress, feeling no shame in my nakedness before the gathered pack. This was sacred, natural, as old as the first humans who learned to honor the wild. I reached for Rhys's painted chest, my palms spreading across the symbols Sarah had drawn there in blessed clay. "I trust you with my humanity," I replied, "and with whatever I become after tonight." "The second bond," Marcus intoned, "is sealed in blood." Sarah stepped forward, carrying a ceremonial knife whose blade gleamed with moonlight and ancient purpose. She handed it first to Rhys, who drew the edge across his palm without hesitation. Dark blood welled up, looking almost black in the silver light. I accepted the knife with steady hands, making a matching cut across my own palm. The pain was sharp but brief, immediately overshadowed by the significance of what we were doing. Rhys pressed his bleeding palm to mine, and the moment our blood mingled, I gasped. Power surged between us, hot, electric, transformative. I could feel Rhys's heartbeat as if it were my own, could sense his thoughts and emotions flowing into my consciousness like a warm tide. "Mine," his voice whispered in my mind, not possessive but reverent. "Finally, completely mine." "Yours," I replied without speaking aloud. "Always yours." "The third bond," Marcus called, his voice rising with the power building in the grove, "is claimed in passion." The pack began to shift, some partially, others completely, until Rhys and I were surrounded by wolves whose howls rose to greet the moon. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, a song of celebration and welcome that seemed to vibrate in my bones. Rhys's control finally snapped. The transformation rippled through him like water. But this time, I could feel it happening to me as well. Not the complete shift to wolf form, but something between. My senses exploded with supernatural clarity, my body becoming stronger, more graceful, perfectly attuned to his. When he pulled me against him, I could feel the barely leashed wildness in his frame, could smell the pine and moonlight and musk that was uniquely his scent. Our kiss was desperate, hungry, filled with weeks of denied desire finally given free rein. "I love you," Rhys growled against my lips, his voice carrying both human words and wolf tongue. "My mate, my heart, my everything." I answered by pulling him down to the soft earth, my body arching against his as ancient instincts took over. The pack's howls crescendoed around us, a symphony of celebration that seemed to call down the very stars. When Rhys's teeth found the curve of my neck, I cried out, not in pain, but in recognition. This was the claiming bite, the final seal that would bind us for all time. I felt his canines pierce my skin, felt the mystical energy that flowed from the wound, and then everything changed. My consciousness exploded outward, connecting not just to Rhys, but to every member of the pack, to the forest itself, to the wild heart of the world. I could feel Sarah's maternal love, Finn's protective instincts, the playful joy of the children, the ancient wisdom of Marcus. I was no longer just Layla, human veterinary assistant from Havenwood. I was pack. Family. Home. Welcome. A dozen voices whispered in my mind simultaneously. Welcome home, sister. Rhys's arms tightened around me as the initial rush of sensations settled into something manageable. How do you feel? He asked softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I took inventory of my transformed body. The enhanced senses, the supernatural strength, the feeling of perfect wholeness that came from being bonded to my mate. But more than that, I felt the rightness of it all. The sense that every choice in my life had been leading to this moment. I feel like I've finally found where I belong, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. 6 weeks later, the peace of our new life was shattered by a desperate call. I was in Rose's greenhouse, carefully cataloging the properties of moonbell flowers, when Rhys burst through the door, his face pale, his usual calm shattered by whatever news he'd received. What is it? I asked immediately, moving to his side. Wallace, he grimly stated. He's found us. But it's worse. He's taken human campers hostage, threatening to kill them unless I surrender myself. My blood ran cold. Who? I asked. A group of human campers who got too close to the settlement perimeter. He says he'll let the humans go free if I come alone. Give myself up to his hunters. Rhys's hands clenched into fists. That's obviously a trap, I said immediately. He has no intention of letting anyone go. I know, he admitted, his amber eyes tortured. But if I don't try to save them, innocent people will die because of what I am. Mate bond or not, I can't live with that on my conscience. I grabbed his hands, forcing him to meet my gaze. We'll find another way. There is no other way, he insisted. I've already discussed it with the pack leaders. This is what Wallace has been planning all along. Force me into an impossible choice between my safety and innocent lives. Then we change the rules of his game, I said firmly. Where is he holding them? About 10 miles south of here, in an old mining camp. Layla, I can feel what you're thinking through our bond, and the answer is no. I won't let you put yourself in danger. And I won't let you walk into certain death alone. I moved to the greenhouse's storage cabinet, pulling out several packets of Rose's more potent healing herbs. We're mates, Rhys. That means we face impossible choices together. Before Rhys could argue further, Sarah appeared in the doorway. The pack is assembled, she reported. Finn's already scouting the area, and David's organizing a rescue plan. I told them I was going alone, Rhys growled. And they told you that pack doesn't abandon pack, Sarah replied calmly, especially not when one of our own is being used as bait. As we gathered with the others in the central lodge, my mind raced through possibilities. Wallace was expecting a straightforward exchange, Rhys's life for the hostages. But he wasn't expecting my unique perspective, my ability to think like both human and pack. What if we gave him what he wants? I said suddenly, interrupting Finn's tactical assessment. Rhys started. Hear me out, I continued. Wallace chose hostages instead of just killing them outright, because he wants witnesses. He wants survivors who can testify about shifter brutality. But what if those same witnesses saw something completely different? I turned to face the assembled pack leaders. What if they saw a community of people, human and shifter alike, working together to save innocent lives? What if Wallace's own plan backfired and proved exactly the opposite of what he intended? Elder Marcus leaned forward, interest kindling in his ancient eyes. Explain. We don't try to hide what we are, I said, feeling the rightness of the plan settling in my bones. We embrace it. We go in openly, humans and shifters together. And we save those people not despite our nature but because of it. We show Wallace and any other hunters watching that we're not the monsters they think we are. That's incredibly risky, Finn pointed out. If it goes wrong, we're no worse off than we are now, I interrupted. But if it works, we change everything. We prove that coexistence is possible. Rhys stared at me, and I felt his wonder and pride flowing through our bond. You want to turn Wallace's trap into a demonstration of everything our community stands for. Exactly, I said, reaching for his hand. But it only works if we trust each other completely. If we let our bond guide us instead of fear. The plan we developed was audacious in its simplicity. The pack would approach the mining camp openly, with Rhys and me in the lead. We would offer a trade. Not Rhys's life, but a demonstration of shifter abilities used for protection rather than violence. Wallace won't accept it, Sarah warned as we prepared to leave. He doesn't have to, I replied, checking the medical supplies I'd packed. We're not asking for his permission. The old mining camp sat in a valley surrounded by steep hills, the perfect place for an ambush. I could see why Wallace had chosen it. Easily defensible, multiple escape routes, and far enough from civilization that no one would hear screams. As we approached, I felt the familiar tingle of enhanced senses that came with heightened emotion. I could smell the fear of the hostages, the metallic tang of gunpowder and the hunter's weapons, and underneath it all, Wallace's cold satisfaction. He thinks he's already won, I murmured to Rhys. Let's prove him wrong. We walked into the camp together, hands linked, with the rest of the pack following behind us. Wallace stood in the center, flanked by armed hunters, while 6 terrified campers huddled nearby under guard. Rhys Vance, Wallace called out. I have to admit, I didn't expect you to bring friends to your execution. I didn't come here to die, Rhys replied calmly. I came here to save innocent people. Same as always. Wallace sneered, his eyes narrowing as he took in the mixed group of humans and shifters standing together without fear or aggression. This isn't what we agreed to. We're changing the terms, I said, stepping forward. You want to prove we're monsters? Fine, but we get to prove we're not. Layla Stone, Wallace's voice dripped with disdain. The woman who threw away her humanity for a beast. The woman who found her true family, I corrected, and discovered that humanity isn't about what species you are, it's about what you choose to do with your power. Before Wallace could respond, one of the hostages, a young woman with a bleeding gash on her forehead, stumbled and fell. I moved instantly, my enhanced speed carrying me to the woman's side before the hunters could react. Let me help, I said softly, my hands glowing with the healing energy I'd learned to channel from Rose's teachings. I'm a doctor. The woman looked up into my eyes, seeing not a monster, but a healer. Please, she whispered. As I tended to the woman's wounds, the other hostages watched in amazement. The healing light that flowed from my hands was clearly supernatural, but it was being used to help, not harm. Fascinating, Wallace said coldly. But tricks of light won't save you. That's when Rhys shifted. The transformation was controlled, deliberate, and beautiful to watch. Instead of the savage beast Wallace expected, the great wolf that emerged moved with dignity and purpose. He padded slowly to where I knelt with the injured woman, then lay down beside us, a guardian, not a predator. One by one, the other pack members followed suit. Some shifted completely, others partially, but all of them positioned themselves as protectors of the hostages rather than threats. The message was clear. They were here to save lives, not take them. This is what we are, I said, looking directly at Wallace while my hands continued to heal. This is what you're trying to destroy. The hostages were staring in wonder now, their fear replaced by awe. They were witnessing something impossible made real. The coexistence of human and wild, natural and supernatural, all united by the simple choice to protect the innocent. Wallace raised his weapon, but his hands were shaking. This wasn't the scenario he'd planned for. How could he claim these creatures were monsters when they were risking their lives to save strangers? The world will never accept you, he said desperately. Maybe not, I replied, finishing my healing work and standing slowly. But these people will remember what they saw here. They'll remember that when we had the power to be monsters, we chose to be healers instead. The standoff stretched for an eternal moment. Then impossibly Wallace lowered his weapon. Go, he said quietly. All of you. Just go. As we led the rescued hostages away from the mining camp, I felt the prophecy's test finally making sense. It hadn't been about choosing between safety and sacrifice. It had been about choosing what kind of future we wanted to build. Hand in hand with Rhys, surrounded by our pack family and the humans whose lives we'd saved, I smiled at the beautiful irony of it all. I'd saved a shifter in a snowstorm, and he'd come back for me. But in the end, we'd saved each other. The gateway was closing, but it wasn't finished yet. Even with the enemy defeated, a tear between worlds struggled to remain open. Shadow tendrils still writhed at its edges, grasping for anything they could drag back to feed their master. It's not over, I said, watching the dimensional wound. The gateway is trying to stabilize itself. Around us, warriors from both packs stood frozen in horror as they realized the nightmare wasn't ending. Several of the shadow appendages had already begun reaching toward the nearest fighters, seeking to claim final victims before the portal collapsed completely. Everyone back, Rhys commanded, But I could see it wouldn't be enough. The shadows moved faster than running wolves, and there were too many wounded warriors who couldn't flee quickly enough. I made my choice. Stepping away from Rhys's protective embrace, I walked directly toward the unstable gateway. Silver light erupted from my skin. But this time it was different. "Layla, no!" Rhys lunged after me, but I held up a hand that stopped him in his tracks. "This is what I was born for," I said, my voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that made every person on the battlefield feel it in their bones. "This is why the moon goddess made me star-touched." I could feel the entity beyond the gateway, its alien rage and hunger pressing against the weakening barriers between worlds. But I was Luna of the eclipse now. I was creation itself walking in mortal form. "You don't belong here," I commanded to the darkness, my words carrying the weight of cosmic law. "Return to your realm and trouble us no more." The entity fought my command, pushing harder against the dimensional barrier. For a moment, I felt the incredible pressure of its will. Ancient beyond measure, hungry beyond comprehension, desperate to escape whatever prison had held it for eons. But I stood firm. Silver light poured from my body, transforming everything it touched. Where the shadows had withered grass and turned soil to ash, new growth sprang up instantly. Where warriors bore wounds from the creature's touch, their injuries healed as if they never existed. The gateway began to shrink, its edges burning away under the assault of pure creation energy. "No!" The entity's voice echoed across dimensions, a sound like smashing glass and dying stars. "The compact was made. The debt must be paid. The compact is void," I replied, my power reaching a crescendo. "You were summoned through deception and malice. By the laws that govern all realms, I banish you back to the void that spawned you." The silver light intensified until it was impossible to look at directly. When it finally faded, the gateway was gone, not just closed but erased entirely, as if it had never existed. I swayed on my feet, drained by the massive expenditure of magic. The star mark on my chest had gone from burning silver to a steady, peaceful glow. "Is it over?" someone called from the crowd of watching warriors. "It's over," I confirmed, then immediately looked around for Rhys. I found him on his knees, 20 feet away, blood seeping through his armor from wounds I hadn't noticed him receiving during the battle. My heart clenched. "Rhys!" I ran to his side, my hands immediately moving to assess his injuries. "Why didn't you tell me you were hurt?" "Didn't want to distract you from saving the world," he said with a weak smile that made my heart ache. Seemed like poor timing. 3 deep gashes ran across his chest where shadow claws had found gaps in his armor. The wounds were already showing signs of infection, black veins spreading from each cut as the entity's malevolent energy tried to claim him even in defeat. "I can heal this," I said, silver light gathering around my hands. "Layla," he caught my wrist weakly, "your magic is spent. You've already done enough." "I haven't done nearly enough." I pressed my palms against his chest, letting my power flow into him. "I love you, and I'm not losing you now. Not after everything we've survived." The healing magic that flowed between us was different from anything I'd used before. Instead of raw power forcing tissue to regenerate, this was something more intimate. My life force intertwining with his, our bond becoming the conduit for restoration. The black veins faded as my starlight burned away the entity's poisonous influence. The wounds knitted closed with threads of silver energy, leaving unmarked skin where moments before there had been mortal injuries. But more than physical healing was taking place. We were bonded now in ways that transcended anything our kind had ever experienced. "Well, that's certainly interesting," a familiar voice drawled. "Wallace." He stood at the edge of the crater where his ambush had been, haggard and hollow, but alive and apparently unrepentant. "You survived," I observed, helping Rhys to his feet. "Barely." Wallace's smile was bitter as winter frost. "Your little light show burned away years of careful preparation. The entity won't be answering any more summons, and the dark magic I'd accumulated is completely gone." "Good," Rhys said flatly. "Maybe now you can learn to live without trying to destroy everyone else's happiness." "Oh, I'm not done yet." Wallace began backing away toward the forest edge. "There are other powers in this world, other sources of strength. You may have won this battle, but the war between alphas and omegas is far from over." "Actually," I said, silver light beginning to swirl around me again, "it is." I reached out with my enhanced magic, not toward Wallace, but toward the sacred grove itself. Power flowed into the ancient stones, into the very earth beneath our feet, carrying a message that would spread to every packed territory in existence. Words formed in the air above us, written in letters of starfire that every supernatural being within 100 miles could read. By the authority of the moon goddess and the power of the eclipse Luna, let it be known that the old laws are ended. No longer shall rank determine worth. No longer shall alphas rule over omegas by birthright alone. From this day forward, all wolves stand equal before the sacred laws, judged by their actions rather than their nature. Gasps echoed from both armies as the proclamation sank in. For centuries, pack hierarchy had been absolute. Alphas at the top, betas in the middle, omegas at the bottom. The entire structure of their society was built on those foundations. And I had just shattered them with a gesture. You can't just change the fundamental laws of our kind, Wallace protested, though his voice carried more fear than conviction. I just did, I said, my power continuing to flow outward, carrying my new laws to every corner of the supernatural world. I am Luna of the eclipse, and this is my decree. Anyone who wishes to challenge it can face me directly. Wallace stared at the glowing words for a long moment, then looked at me with something that might have been respect. You realize what you've done, don't you? The chaos this will cause. The wars that will be fought over these changes. Better wars for freedom than peace built on oppression, I replied. Change is never easy, but it's necessary. We'll see. Wallace turned toward the forest, then paused. For what it's worth, star-touched Omega, you might actually be strong enough to survive what comes next. But strength alone won't be enough to rebuild an entire civilization. Then it's a good thing I won't be doing it alone, I said, taking Rhys's hand as Wallace disappeared into the shadows. Around us, warriors from both packs were beginning to process what had just happened. Some looked excited by the promise of a more equal future. Others appeared confused or concerned about the upheaval ahead. So, Rhys said quietly, squeezing my hand, ready to reshape the world? Ready to try, I replied, watching the last of the eclipse pass and normal moonlight return to bathe the battlefield in silver peace. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, I stood on the platform that had once been our command post, now a thriving community center. The New Jersey Pack, once a symbol of rigid hierarchy, now buzzed with conversations about partnership and respect. The Silver Proclamation had resonated through the supernatural world, splitting it into factions. The traditionalists clinging to the old ways, and the progressives who embraced our vision. Rhys, my powerful Alpha Prince, joined me, his presence a warm constant through our shared bond. We discussed the progress, packs adopting our governance model, former rivals forming new alliances. He slipped an arm around my waist, a casual gesture of a mate who no longer feared snipers or assassins. We were building something real. A familiar voice called my name. Sarah, Rhys's aunt, approached, her face beaming. You're glowing, Layla. I smiled, a knowing warmth spreading through me. The past few weeks, a new energy had been stirring within me, separate from my star magic, yet undeniably connected. That night, as we stood under the true moonlight, I turned to Rhys. I need to tell you something. His expression immediately shifted to concern. What is it? Are all right? I guided his hand to rest on my stomach. We're going to have a baby. His eyes went wide, then filled with a joy so intense it made my own heart race. Are you certain? He whispered. As certain as I can be without formal testing. But I can sense it, Rhys. There's a new presence growing inside me, and it feels powerful. Different. Like this child is going to be something special. His hand pressed more firmly against my stomach, and through our bond, I felt the exact moment he sensed what I had. The tiny spark of developing life that carried traces of both our magical signatures. Star-touched, he breathed. The baby is going to be star-touched like you. More than that, I closed my eyes, letting my awareness sink deeper into the growing life within me. I think this child might be the first of a new kind of wolf entirely. Someone who inherits both star magic and alpha power from birth. The implications were staggering. If our child, Michael, could wield both types of magic, what would that mean for the future of our kind? What new abilities might emerge from such a unique combination? 7 months later, the New Jersey Pack buzzed with anticipation. Our son, Michael, was due any day. Rhys had become impossibly protective, hovering like a worried mother hen. I found him one morning installing baby-proofing latches on every cabinet in our renovated pack house. You know the baby isn't due for 3 more weeks, right? I teased. I know, he replied, not looking up. But I want. Life settled into a rhythm, one I cherished more deeply than words could express. Michael, our prophesied Alpha Prince, bloomed under the watchful eyes of our chosen pack. His laughter was the sweetest music, his tiny explorations filled with boundless curiosity. Rhys, my powerful mate, became the most devoted father, his intense focus now channeled into baby-proofing everything and marveling at every milestone. Our home, once just a cabin in Havenwood, then a sanctuary, was now a vibrant heart of a new world, a testament to what love and defiance could build. But the world outside our haven still churned. The silver proclamation had indeed, as Wallace predicted, caused chaos. Not all packs embraced our vision of equality. The traditionalists, particularly those far from our influence, clung to the old ways, seeing our growing alliance of free packs as a direct threat. News trickled in through our scouts and new allies. Old alphas consolidating power, whispers of a council of old blood forming to resist the changes. Seth, the Alpha Prince of the New Jersey pack, the man who had publicly broken my heart, was said to be among their most vocal proponents. He preached about maintaining purity of bloodline and traditional hierarchy, calling our movement a dangerous rebellion. I knew it was more than just politics for him, it was personal. He believed he was destined for absolute power, and my very existence, especially with Michael, challenged that. One crisp autumn evening, as Michael slept soundly in his crib, Rhys and I sat by the fire, discussing the latest intelligence reports. "The Council of Old Blood is planning a summit," Rhys said, his voice low, his amber eyes reflecting the flames. "They're gathering support, trying to present a unified front against the free packs. Seth is at the forefront, pushing for an aggressive stance." My heart gave a familiar pang. He won't stop, will he? Not until he's crushed everything we've built. Rhys reached for my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my knuckles. He can't. Not anymore. Not with what you represent. Not with Michael. He paused, then his gaze sharpened. "There's also a rumor circulating, a new prophecy they're using to rally support. One about a tainted bloodline rising to corrupt the true alpha lines." A chill ran down my spine. Tainted bloodline? They're twisting our story, aren't they? Turning Michael into a threat. "Exactly," Rhys confirmed, his jaw tightening. "They're stirring up fear, claiming Michael's unique blend of abilities is an abomination, a corruption of ancient magic. It's a direct attack on his legitimacy and yours." My gaze immediately went to Michael's crib. My beautiful, innocent son. He was the purest thing in my life, and they were already trying to demonize him. We can't let them. We have to counter it. Show them Michael isn't a threat, but a promise. Rhys nodded slowly. "We will. But it won't be easy. The Council of Old Blood holds sway over many packs. Their influence runs deep. Over the next few months, our efforts intensified. Elder Marcus and Sarah worked tirelessly, spreading the word among sympathetic packs, highlighting the benefits of the Silver Proclamation. We formed alliances with other emerging communities, including a bear shifter clan who shared our vision of coexistence, and a rogue coven of witches seeking refuge from oppressive traditional magic users. They provided us with ancient knowledge and new protective spells. My own star-touched abilities grew, becoming more integrated, more natural. I learned to weave my power into the very fabric of our sanctuary, creating a subtle shield that made it harder for malevolent forces to find us. Rhys and I, as a true pair, often trained together, our combined power a mesmerizing dance of strength and starlight. We taught the pack to fight not with aggression, but with purpose, defending their home and their ideals. One afternoon, as I was teaching a group of young shifters how to safely harness their burgeoning animalistic senses, a chilling scent hit me. Smoke. Not wood smoke, but something acrid metallic carried on the wind from the east. It was faint, but my enhanced senses screamed danger. I immediately notified Rhys. Our scouts soon confirmed my fears. A full battalion from the Council of Old Blood, led by Seth Maxwell himself, was approaching our territory. They weren't coming to negotiate. "They're burning the forest as they come," Finn reported, his face grim. "A scorched earth tactic. Trying to flush us out, leave us no cover." The news sent a ripple of fear through the pack, but it quickly solidified into grim determination. We were outnumbered, but we had the advantage of knowing our land, and the unyielding strength of those fighting for their home, not just for power. Rhys called a full pack meeting. He stood before them, a towering figure of quiet strength. "They are coming to destroy everything we've built, everything we believe in. They will try to tell you we are weak, that our way is unnatural. They will try to make you doubt the very ideals you chose to fight for." His gaze swept over every face, including Michael's, who was nestled in Sarah's arms, blissfully unaware. "We will not let them." I stepped forward, my voice resonating with the quiet authority that had grown within me. We fight for choice. For a world where every child, no matter their birth, can grow up free. For a home built on love, not fear. We fight for Michael's future. My star-touched mark pulsed on my chest, a faint silver light. This is our final stand. We are the architects of a new dawn. The battle erupted with a roar that tore through the ancient forest. Seth's forces, a grim tide of wolves from various traditional packs, crashed against our carefully constructed defenses. They were disciplined, well-armed, and driven by a fanatical belief in their cause. But we fought with the desperation of those defending more than just territory. We fought for an ideal. Rhys was a whirlwind of raw power, his wolf form a silver-gray blur, tearing through enemy lines. My own magic flowed, instinctively responding to the chaos, weaving protective shields, enhancing our pack's speed and disorienting our foes. My connection to Rhys was absolute. I could anticipate his every move, amplify his strength, and shield him from attacks he couldn't see. But Seth was cunning. He bypassed our main defenses, leading a specialized unit directly towards our hidden nursery, where the young and the vulnerable, including Michael, had been taken. My heart hammered as I felt the shift in the battle's focus through my bond with Rhys. "Michael!" I gasped, the name a desperate plea. Rhys's eyes met mine, a silent understanding passing between us. He tore himself from the main fight, a primal growl rumbling in his chest. "Go," he commanded. "Protect our son." I didn't hesitate. My star-touched magic flared, propelling me through the chaos with impossible speed. I moved like a streak of moonlight, bypassing warriors on both sides, my single focus on Michael. I burst into the hidden cave where Sarah and Elder Marcus were shielding the children. Seth stood at the entrance, his powerful alpha form radiating menace. He held a terrified Sarah by the throat, her form already partially shifted, a snarl twisting his handsome features. "So the little Omega finally shows her face," he sneered, his gaze sweeping over me with cold contempt. "Still running, Layla?" My breath hitched, but my fear quickly ignited into a blazing fury. "You leave them alone, Seth. You want me, you deal with me." He laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Always so dramatic. But you're too late. I've come for what's mine. The true alpha bloodline. My son." His eyes flicked to Michael, who had just stirred in Sarah's arms, his own tiny dual-colored eyes. One amber, one silver, blinking open. "He's not yours." I roared, my star-touched magic exploding outwards. A wave of pure, silver light erupted from my body, not uncontrolled and wild as it once had been, but precise, focused, and devastatingly powerful. It slammed into Seth, sending him staggering back, his alpha aura momentarily disrupted. He snarled, recovering quickly, his eyes widening in surprise. "What is this? You were never this strong." "You stripped me bare, Seth," I said, stepping forward, my voice resonating with my newfound power. "You broke me. And in the ashes, I found something you could never understand. True strength, born of my own choices, fueled by love, not by titles or bloodlines." He lunged, his fangs bared, his alpha command lashing out, trying to force me to submit. But his command washed over me like a weak ripple. His rejection had shattered my ties to the old hierarchy. My mate bond with Rhys, forged in cosmic fire, had remade me. I met his attack not with fear, but with a surge of star-touched magic, weaving it into a defensive shield that shimmered with ethereal light. Seth crashed against it, momentarily stunned. "You're a monster," he spat, scrambling back. "No," I replied, my voice steady. "I am a mother. And you threaten my child." I raised my hand, and the ancient cave walls seemed to hum with my power. Seth's eyes widened. "The prophecy, it speaks of a tainted bloodline, yes. But it's not Michael. It's you, Seth. You're the one clinging to a corrupted version of power, blinded by your own ambition." Just then Rhys burst into the cavern, his wolf form massive and radiating protective fury. He saw Seth, saw Michael, and his growl shook the very foundations of the cave. Seth snarled, shifting to his own wolf form, preparing for battle. But something unexpected happened. As Rhys lunged, Michael, still in Sarah's arms, giggled. A tiny, innocent sound. And then a faint golden shimmer, like captured starlight, emanated from his small body, briefly bathing the cave in warmth. It was pure, unadulterated power, the kind that spoke of ancient gods and primordial magic. Seth froze mid-lunge, his eyes locking onto Michael. He had seen the child's unique eyes, heard the prophecy, but to feel that raw, untamed power firsthand, it was overwhelming. The legend was real. The Alpha Prince who embodied the new era, destined to unite. This momentary distraction was all Rhys needed. He slammed into Seth, a whirlwind of silver-gray fur and raw power. The battle was brutal, primal. These were two alphas, one driven by ego and old ambition, the other by fierce love and a promise of a new future. I stood guard, my star-touched power ready, but Rhys fought with a clarity and strength I'd rarely witnessed, fueled by the direct threat to his mate and son. Seth was powerful, but he was fighting for himself. Rhys was fighting for us. When the fight finally ended, Seth lay broken, defeated, but alive. Rhys stood over him, panting, his powerful chest heaving, his fur matted with sweat and dust, but his amber eyes clear, victorious. He didn't deliver a killing blow. "This ends now, Seth," Rhys growled, his voice carrying the full weight of his alpha command. "You will cease your aggressions against the free packs. You will accept the new laws. Or you will face the consequences." Seth looked from Rhys to me, then to Michael, his expression a mix of fury and dawning realization. The defeat, the undeniable power he'd witnessed, had broken his rigid belief system. The war for the New Jersey Pack's dominance was over. In the days that followed, the impact of Michael's power, witnessed by both our pack and some of Seth's forces, spread like wildfire. The tainted bloodline narrative crumbled, replaced by awe and wonder at the prophesied Alpha Prince. Michael, with his dual-colored eyes and inherent magical aura, became a living symbol of the new era. Life settled into a beautiful, purposeful rhythm. Michael grew, a joyous, curious child, his amber and silver eyes missing nothing. He embodied the very essence of the future we had fought for, a blending of strength and compassion, magic and reality. Rhys, my powerful mate, my Alpha Prince, now ruled not just our pack, but presided over a growing alliance of free packs, his leadership defined by wisdom and collaboration. He consulted with elders, mediated disputes, and championed the new ways. Our relationship, born of betrayal and forged in fire, was the cornerstone of this new world. One cool autumn evening, as Michael slept soundly in his crib, bathed in the soft glow of a handcrafted nightlight, Rhys and I sat on the porch of our pack house. The stars glittered overhead, mirroring the silver light that sometimes still danced on my skin. Rhys turned to me, his amber eyes reflecting the starlight. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a simple, elegant ring, carved with entwined wolves and a tiny star. "Layla," he said, his voice deep with emotion, "we've built a world from nothing. We've defied prophecies, fought armies, and created a future where our son can truly be free. You are my Luna, my equal in power, my partner in every battle. Will you do me the honor of being my wife? Will you make our bond eternal, not just by fate, but by choice?" Tears blurred my vision. "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. 8,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly, warm against my skin. As he leaned in to kiss me, a soft, profound contentment settled over me. From a discarded Omega to the Luna of a new age, a mother to a prophesied prince, I had found my worth not in a title given by others, but in the fierce, unyielding love of my family and the power of my own choices. The old pack was shattered, but from its ashes, we had built something infinitely better. Don't forget to like this video if you were swept away by their story, and subscribe to my channel for more captivating werewolf romance audiobooks. Your engagement helps me bring these worlds to life.